So I'd like to talk about the idea of adding a file, because this is a little bit confusing for some people. When you want to add a file, it just means that it's a file that you'd like the students to view rather than having to do anything with it. So for instance, if you need them to complete a Kami assignment, or if you need them to actually manipulate a Google Drive file such as a doc or a Google slide, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just simply adding a file for them to be able to read through or to look at. Okay, and a lot of the times people will come here to add materials and they see this option to add file and they assume that that's what they need to do. When you do this and you choose the option to add a file, it's going to ask you to actually attach or upload something from your computer. So if you're on your PC, it's asking you to add something from your H drive or from your C drive or something of that sort. If you're on a Chromebook, it'll allow you to navigate to your Google Drive, but then it only lets you attach files that are PDFs. So I'm going to show you a different option. I do not like this option of adding files. So we're going to close out of that. So if you've seen our video about adding pages, that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to take and we're going to add a page. And at the top, I'm going to call this, I was in my research folder. So along those lines, I want to be able to give my students access to copyright-friendly media, okay, specifically images, because I'm going to ask them to find copyright-friendly images that they can insert into their presentations once they're done with their research. So I have a Google slide that I want to share with them. Two different ways that you can import from our Google Drive resource app, and that's exactly what we're looking to do, is to utilize what's called the Google Drive resource app, and this has been installed for everyone, teachers and students alike. All right, so two options. You can come down here to Resources and click that. When it loads, you're going to go to Apps, and you see it defaults to Google Drive Resource Apps for me, and then I could search through my Google Drive and pull something in. But the other way, the one that I tend to use more often, is this Insert Content option right here. If you click on that, you see Google Drive Resource App right there. Okay, and it's going to, again, still pull up my Google Drive. If it's the first time that you've used this, you will have to search for, or you'll have to allow permissions before you can search for it. So I'm going to go ahead and search up top here for copyright-friendly images, and I can see my Google Slides presentation right there. So I can click on the settings gear here and import the embed file. The embed is nice because it's not another link that they have to click on. They'll immediately see the file. Okay, so I tend to like this one. The other option would be to check it off and then do import as an embed. Okay, but I just like to come to the settings gear. You'll figure out what works best for you. So I go to the settings gear and import the embed. It's going to give you this yellow box, and a lot of people get nervous with that. You don't have to be nervous about that. It's going to look just fine once you finally save this here or create it. And I don't know if you noticed, but I just deleted it. It tends to put in a space above it. I don't know why, but it does it every single time, and it kind of drives me nuts, so I get rid of that every time. Down here, display on new page means that they're going to have to click on this in order to see it. I don't want them to do that, so I'm going to click on that so that I want it displayed inline on the page, and I'll show you what I mean by that. When I hit create, the file is going to appear right on the page for me. So this is the embed option. Okay, so it's right there and it's inline on the page. If I had not selected inline on page, I would have had to have clicked on the title and then I would have seen the file itself. Okay, this is kind of small, so a couple things. You can either teach the students to click on this the ellipsis here and go full screen with this. They can also click on it to view it in Google Slides, but I'm going to just come in and I'm going to edit that. I'm going to show you how to make it a little bit bigger. If you click on that yellow box, that placeholder that's showing where the file is going to be, here I have the option to adjust the size of the embedded image, and I'm going to leave it. I want the proportions that are there, and I'm just going to up this a little bit here and save those changes, and you're going to see what this looks like. So that's much larger for my students. Any links that I have in there, those are all clickable for my students to use, and so it's nice because it allows them to view that file and interact with it if there are links in it, but they can't make any changes to it or anything like that. All right, which is good. Just another option here, if I wanted to add a PDF, it's the same process, but just so that you can see, I'm going to go ahead and add page again, and this is, since I'm using the add materials, it's going to put it at the very bottom. This one I want to pull in, I have a file about Creative Commons. because it's important for our kids to understand what the licenses are for images that have been saved on the web. So again, I'm using Insert Content, Google Drive Resource App, and I need to search this time for Creative Commons handout, I believe. There we go. Okay. So, and again, I'm going to do an import embed. Getting rid of the space there. I can, right now it's being posted to all my sections, but I could have, customized that. I could have assigned it to individual students. I don't want it to display on a new page. I want it to just be visible to them immediately. So I'm going to change it to display inline before I hit create. And now let's take a look at what that looks like. So I'm getting a little bit, my page is getting a little bit long here, okay, but there's my PDF. So when you want them just simply to view a file, we're not using that add file option. We're actually going to add a page and insert it from, most likely, your Google Drive Resource App. Notice that with the PDF here, I do have the option to pop this out into a new window. So if that's not big enough, but they can scroll through and read through the whole file right here. I could go back in and edit the size of this one and make it a little bit bigger as well if I wanted to, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave that alone. Okay, so that would be how we would add in a file that you just simply want the students to view.